All right, hey y'all, we're back. Sorry about that. That was a user error on my side. I needed to connect to a different Wi-Fi than the one I was connected to here, just outside of Marco Island, Florida. So I'm in an RV. We call it Good Force One. It's one of our travel vehicles. We're stationed away here on the front edge of the fight for democracy, and also down from the beach, and at this RV park. Our little Wi-Fi here just can't handle it, so I have to connect through my phone. Somehow my telephone has better Wi-Fi than Comcast. How's that possible? But we are back talking about how the Trump administration and the way that it has led itself, the way it's behaved, has proven itself, in my view, to be the most anti-Christian. I don't want an administration to be Christian. I don't want it to be pro-Christian, but I also don't want it to be anti-Christian. I don't want it to be doing the very opposite things. And if it is, then Christians have to rise up and fill in the gap and fill all the rest. Which, Rob, here's what's interesting. A lot of Christians I know, this is what they want. This is what the weird thing is. They kind of want two things to happen. They want the government to be Christian. This is Christian nationalists I'm speaking of. They want it to be really Christian leaders, righteous leaders. But then they don't want the government under those righteous leaders to do the things of caring for the poor. They want the church to do the things of caring for the poor. Then why do you need the leaders to be? It's a conundrum that I'm not going to spend any time trying to solve on Christian nationalist behalf. But it is befuddling.
And we really kind of relish being persecuted too.
Yes.
It's just like it's you begin to pull at the threads of all of this, and there are so many logical inconsistencies.
Right. Well, that's such a great point, Rob, because here's what we're living in the United States right now, in my view. The most anti-Christian administration ever. Bragging about taking money from children. Bragging about stealing from the poor. Literally shutting down food shelves. Taking away money in this country and elsewhere from children, taking away people's medicines and Medicare and healthcare options, bragging about it, firing people from their jobs and feeling great about it. All of this activity. Meanwhile, not persecuting Christians, cheering on Christians, bragging for Christians while doing anti-Christian things. Not the first time in a nation's history. AKA Germany in the 1930s, if you just wanted to pick an example. Yep. By the way, not AKA, not also known as. Pardon me for using the wrong acronym. I hate when people misuse the AKA. But an example is Germany in the 30s, the United States in the 2025s. So that's where we live. That's where we are. That's why we entitled it this way. And we'll talk a bit about all of this as we push forward. But a couple of big days, a couple of big elections on this day, Rob.
Yeah, it's a big election day. There's a couple of special elections in Florida happening. Matt Gaetz was nominated to be Attorney General and resigned from Congress as a result of that, and then withdrew from consideration as Attorney General and did not return to Congress. And so there's a special...
I wonder why Matt Gaetz didn't return to Congress. That is shocking. Maybe it's the investigations into his criminal activity and sexual behavior with minors. Yes.
Yeah. It was probably that. Yeah, probably that. So anyways, there is a special election for his congressional seat. There's also a special election because Congressman Mike Walls became the National Security Advisor, a job that we learned last week he's tremendously qualified for because of his ability to keep conversations secure. And so if Democrats were to win these two elections, it would dramatically reshape the House of Representatives.
Yes.
Now it's probably not going to happen. They could win one of the seats. It's going to be very interesting to see.
Yeah.
The other election that's happening right now, that's happening today, is in Wisconsin, where they are electing a Supreme Court justice. I don't know how you feel, Doug. I'm not a huge fan of people electing judges. I don't know, the idea of judges campaigning, not
Yeah,
a big fan of. And this race in particular has
me too.
gotten particularly icky
Mm-hmm.
because
Mm.
Elon Musk has gotten involved and
And just makes
has
everything gross.
offered. Yeah, he
The
really
man
does.
whose company makes ugly cars, he himself makes ugly elections.
Yeah, and so he is, uh, and even as I tell you about the Wisconsin election for Supreme Court, a uh, a Starbucks has arrived that says you are the best.
Wow.
Uh, yeah,
Hey,
just magically.
I've got to tie into that cup
Yeah,
in this
yeah,
conversation.
yeah. So, anyways, Elon Musk has paid two voters in Wisconsin
Yep.
$1 million each, probably in violation of the law,
Yes.
um, in an attempt to influence this election. Now, it's critically important because so-called liberals or progressives hold a majority on the Wisconsin Supreme Court.
Yeah.
This election could flip that back to conservative
Yes.
control of the Wisconsin Supreme Court. And, with so much happening in states and swing states like Wisconsin is, uh, the rulings of Supreme Courts
Yeah.
are just crucial, and
Yeah.
so this is a big one. So
There's
it's a big election day.
two things facing the Wisconsin Supreme Court that have Elon Musk there. One is the outcome of elections and changing districts and redistricting. It's a big thing in Wisconsin. And the other is he has a number of cases where he's being sued by this state of Wisconsin. and, and he's got his finger out. So I want to admit that I was wrong about two things.
Yeah,
And these are legitimate. Wrong about. One is I never thought there was a chance that either of these elections in Florida could go for the Democrat until a week ago.
yep,
Look, I have been sucker punched by candidates sending me text messages telling me that they're 3 points up, and if I could chip in $5, that would make the difference.
yeah,
That's happened to me,
yeah,
and then only to be disappointed. It could be happening again, but as you say, it does look like one of these races could just come down to who mobilizes turnout on a beautiful April 1st day in the northern part of Florida. So
yep.
it
And
really, really could happen. And that if you get just a one vote, if you take one vote away from Republicans in the House, that just means every other Republican that can't show up for a vote, like it just makes it
yeah,
even more possible for
yeah,
some kind of prevention, some other reason a Republican has to leave
yeah,
office in the next couple of weeks or months. Just makes it that much closer if they're in places. And look, Trump only picked these guys. Well, he picked Gates because I think Gates must have something on Trump, so he was trying to give him a handout to get out of Congress. But he only picked Mike to be the national security advisor because he thought it was a safe seat, and Gates as well. So if Trump
right.
picks people who he thinks is a safe seat, and then Republicans have a chance of losing those seats in
Right.
Florida.
Yeah.
Wow.
And this is also the reason why Elise Stefanik is no longer the nominee to be the ambassador to the United Nations.
That
Donald Trump, which is a stunning development. She's a congresswoman from New York. Her nomination to be ambassador to the Supreme Court was pulled last week, the end of last week.
ambassador to the United Nations, right? Yeah.
Yeah, ambassador to the United. Is that what I said?
So,
All right.
it's okay. We don't have to repeat the lie. We don't have to repeat the lie that you shared a minute ago. You just accidentally said ambassador to the Supreme Court, but
oh yeah. Well, totally.
of course it was just a slip of the tongue.
Yeah, we should have one of those. So she was nominated to be the ambassador to the United Nations, and again chosen because it was a safe seat. It's a district that Donald Trump won by 20 points. Should be a safe seat. Her nomination was pulled. She was going to be confirmed. She wasn't pulled because she was going to lose. Like, she was absolutely going to be confirmed. She was pulled because they're scared of losing that seat.
That seat.
And if they lose in Florida, and if they were to lose that seat, you know, Hakeem Jeffries is Speaker of the House. And so,
and again, look, I know this is fanciful, but sometimes fantasy predicts future realities. And sometimes it's just a great way to get yourself through the day.
Now, Doug, you said that you were wrong about two things.
Well, let me stay in my fantasy world before I'm pulled back in.
I'd love to hear the second.
Here's the I'll get to that in a second. Here's the fantasy around a one person majority for Republicans in the House. It only takes one Republican to just say, I don't like you all. I'm going to go caucus with these folks. Just takes one. So,
yep.
Here's the fantasy. The chances of getting 3 Republicans to ever do the right thing and to put a stop to what they're up to is impossible. 2 is completely idiotic. 1, just bargaining with the Lord.
I feel like the cities are going to be destroyed nonetheless.
So maybe there's just one. Then all the force could just be applied to one person. And instead of getting rid of, Mike Johnson as the Speaker of the House for some reason, you just go caucus over there with the Democrats. And then when you're tired of the Democrats, you go and re-caucus with the Republican. Like, you give the power to one member to just be like, who's the daddy now, friends? So there's my fantasy world. All right, totally wrong about these races even being in play. The other is, I was wrong about saying that what Elon Musk is doing at Doge, which is the most Doge of names. God, it's just everything about the guy. By the way, side note, I've never been an Elon Musk fan, so I'm not one of the. I used to be a big fan of the guy. I've always found him to be like, he bought his companies, he bought the technology. Yes. He's not genius.
Yes, anyway. He's not Steve Jobs. He's not Bill Gates.
No, he's literally just not those guys, which is why he can leave his companies and go do this nonsense, because they don't need him around. I thought and said out loud, look, we should be against Doge and its cutting of the government, no matter who is doing it. We should not, I said out loud, probably even on this podcast, because my God, I said it to everybody. I mean, I said it to strangers at the grocery store. Mm-hmm. We shouldn't be spending our time dealing in some class argument about that it's a billionaire that's doing it, right? Because what he's doing is the problem. If he was the most broke-ass guy in the country, and this is the only job he could get, and he was in doing this, we should still be screaming out loud, this is terrible. We shouldn't say, well, the guy needs a job. It shouldn't matter how much money he has or his social position in our society. I've changed my view on that because Elon Musk is such a POS on this. Because as it turns out, now some, 2 months in, every single agency that he has gutted is one that he had a personal interest or business interest in gutting.
Yep.
So as it turns out, he's not even just doing some dumbery libertarian thing. He is actually doing things that are particularly focused on his own social status and whining about the fact that former vice presidential candidate and probably still governor of Minnesota, Tim Walz, was down talking his stock. Oh, just how dare Tim Walz go out and down? What a jerk for him. This is a guy who's truly spent his time taking food from children, telling us we should feel bad that his stock, which has been overvalued since it launched, was down talked by a governor of a state. Come on, you crybaby. I mean, just the level to which the fragility of this guy and the capricious nature by which he's doing this is all driven by the Elon Musk nature. So I have completely changed my view. And we should say Elon Musk's name every day in association with this. And that's why Trump started talking 2 days ago. At some point, Elon's going to go back to his work, maybe even before the 130 days of his little fakey job description that he has. Because I think they've realized, this guy is this guy is all full of trouble. And they haven't saved a doggone dime. Rob, do you remember the line when you were a kid, the old joke? I want to lose 10 pounds of ugly fat? To cut off your head. You know that joke? Well, when I was a kid, it was a big joke. That's like what they've been doing at Doge. You want to cut 10% of government waste? Just cut this thing. No, that's actually the stuff we need. Case in point, and then I want to get to this thing about the Supreme Court actions of Musk. Trump administration put in cuts that canceled food deliveries to harvesters and to food banks and cut subsidies to farmers. Yep. Literally went and took food away from food banks. This is why, when I was hungry, you fed me. When you take money that the American people have said, yes, should go to people who need it via food banks, and you take it away, you do the opposite of that Christian thing. Now, if you're proud of it, feel free to brag about it, as they are. And I have a bunch of friends that don't watch this podcast, but watch the little posts I put up. And I put up a post every week that says, Trump voting friends, here's your chance this week to speak up against your dear leader.
Yep.
This one caught some of their attention. They even said, well, this is just a screenshot. Where's the article? I'm like, just do your research. But the idea that food banks, there is nothing more American than food banks. Delivering food to Americans via each other is kind of the way we think we should handle people who don't have enough food. Were you going to say that there's something not American about food banks? Have I missed a subset of the Christian argument?
No, it's just terrible to think that people having to be given free food from food banks because they don't get paid enough at their job or whatever,
Yes.
Whatever reason that is, like, there's nothing more American than that. That's a gut punch
point.
of a statement.
That's a good point. That's kind of sad. That is, we both enjoy coffee from the capitalist society. There's other people who aren't going to get milk, eggs, chicken, and canned goods. Why? For no reason other than someone in Trump's world, including Elon Musk, thought this constituted fraud and waste. You want to lose 10 pounds of ugly fat? Cut off your head. Terrible advice and a childish joke. And that's what these guys are doing.
Yeah.
Rob, you know what happened to me the other day? I watched...
What happened to you the other day?
I watched the 1973 classic Disney film, Robin Hood, with my 5.5-year-old grandson.
The one with the fox?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, this is the fully animated one before they got all funny about it.
Yeah, it's the one with the fox, which is just a classic. One of my absolute favorites.
Right up there with Oodle Lolly Golly, what a day. I mean, just...
right up there with Little Mermaid.
Robin Hood and Little John marching through the forest, laughing back and forth at what the other one had to say. I mean, what a great line, right? Laughing back and forth at what the other one had to say. As it turns out, that is actually a 1973 commentary on 2025. You've got a king who shouldn't really be the king, who's a little whiner and a little baby and feels bad about everything. Mm-hmm. You have the guy working for the king going around shaking down the poor. I mean, watch this film. It'll blow your mind. Shaking down the poor, going in and taking kids' birthday presents from them. And then you have, of course, Robin Hood and his merry band that are trying to redistribute the money that the people think should go to the poor. And that's the thing about what Doge is doing. We all decided as a nation, through our elected officials, that we would distribute food and
through our
resources
representative republic.
Not even a democracy. We do this.
Right.
So the opposite of anything you could imagine to be Christian, and a terrible idea. And people are really actually shocked at this. You know, they thought Trump was going to bring prices down. They thought Trump was going to rev up the economy. The economy is down. Jobs are being lost. Prices are going up. He's now adding tariffs just to make everything more expensive when he said on day one, I'll make things cheaper, and things immediately got more expensive. It's just so bizarre that when people say things like the only person who had an idea to take down America from the inside was Vladimir Putin, it does make you wonder if they're not actually onto things, onto something.
Yep.
All right.
Now the question becomes, Doug, who's Robin Hood?
Yeah. Yeah, we are, I guess. I don't know. It kind of...
Right? Like that's...
Yeah, because part of the problem is that the Republicans have seen themselves as the Robin Hoods.
Yeah.
Because people are being overtaxed and the government's taking their money from them. No, we've had a hostile takeover of the federal government. And the hostile takeover is now turning its sights on the most vulnerable. Under the guise of being able to extend and add new tax cuts without adding to the deficit. Trump got so beat up by his first tax cut in 2017, creating the most government spending of any president ever and inflating the deficit. The only way to do it is to call Social Security a Ponzi scheme and take food from food banks.
Yeah.
And again, Trump supporting friends, anybody watching? If that's what you voted for, hang in there. Or it's okay to break with your great leader. It's okay to say he's wrong about this. Not just his tone is wrong, not just the way he said it. Just say, I was wrong.
Yep.
It's okay. We all already know it. Here's the thing about people admitting they're wrong, which of course I was so brave to do today.
Yeah. We're still waiting on the second way you were wrong, by the way. You haven't told us that yet.
Oh, I was wrong about that it's about Elon Musk.
Yeah.
I was saying it shouldn't matter that it was Elon Musk. Anyone doing Doge.
Yeah.
The first one I was wrong about the Florida elections.
Oh, okay. Okay, got it.
See, friends, this is an illustration of how quickly people will forget that you were ever even wrong. They won't hold your wrongs against you. They will keep no records of your wrongs.
I'm a very gracious person. I'm a very gracious person.
Love will overcome all of these things, and they will be washed away. They will be blotted out, and you'll be made white as snow, which is not a reference to white being good and black being bad, even though that's the way a lot of people have used it over the centuries to try to say that some people deserve enslavement. And if you didn't know that, spend a little time with that theory because it's actually true. All right. Well, here's what happened to Musk over the weekend. As you were saying, he ran an event where he gave away $1 million to two people in a check. And he put up this tweet, which I did a screenshot from a guy named Ben Cohen's YouTube channel, which I would highly encourage people to watch. I have toned down a lot of my media, and I got a few people, and I'm going to make sure I'm saying his name right. It's just a tremendous gift of a channel, actually. Brian Tyler Cohen's page. It's just great. I'm not on Twitter anymore. I don't have an account that gets me on Twitter, so I gotta screenshot off other people's videos. Sunday night, I will give a talk in Wisconsin. Elon Musk writes on Twitter. Entrance is limited to those who have voted in the Supreme Court election. I will also personally hand over 2 checks for $1 million each in appreciation for you taking your time to vote. This is super important, writes Elon Musk, or someone on Elon Musk's account. The guy who owns the platform.
Yep.
Well, the Democratic Committee of Wisconsin, of course, said, yeah, that violates Wisconsin law. You can't give anything of benefit for anyone to vote.
Right.
In fact, years ago, this is the tie into your coffee delivery. Starbucks tried to give people free coffee on election day with a I voted sticker, and the right lost their mind.
Yep.
The right went crazy and said, "You're trying to incentivize people to vote. You can't do it. You can't do it. You can't do it." A few minutes later, Elon Musk takes down that tweet. But as we know about the internet, it's all still there. Takes down that tweet and puts up this one. On Sunday night, I will give a talk in Wisconsin. To clarify a previous post, entrance is limited to those who have signed the petition in opposition to activist judges. I will also hand over checks for $1 million to 2 people to be spokesmen for the petition.
Yep.
In one public statement, the owner of Twitter said, "I will personally hand over 2 checks for $1 million each in appreciation for you taking time to vote." And in the second one, he says, "No, I'm going to hand it over to people who will then be spokespeople," but he calls them spokesmen, "for the petition." Oh,
yeah.
Do you think Elon Musk had an attorney call him and say, "Sir, you just committed a crime. If you hand over that check with that statement?" Now, I would contend there's an awful lot of people who heard him say many times in the press and on Twitter previously that if you vote, show up, and you can win $1 million. Violated the law. This guy is the one who wants to tell the rest of us that government officials need to tell him what they've been up to, and he will determine if their job is wasteful or not. And he's the guy who doesn't seem to know the laws of voting in Wisconsin. I thought he was so brilliant, we couldn't get by without him cutting the waste. Meanwhile, he doesn't know anything about it. He doesn't even have the common sense to have someone who knows that he should write the second tweet tell him what to write in the first tweet. And by the way, it's still the Gulf of Mexico and it's still Twitter. Can't change the name. You can try to call a male a female if you want, say the conservatives, but I won't do it. Well, you can try to call Twitter X if you want, but I won't do it.
This is not the first time that Elon Musk has tried this stunt. It happened in Pennsylvania during the presidential election. I'm thinking about the disdain that Elon Musk must have for American voters. What motivates you to vote? Is it your duty as a citizen? Sometimes I go to vote simply because it's the right thing to do. Sometimes I go to vote because I'm really excited about the person I'm voting for. I know that doesn't happen often. Often it feels like you're voting for the lesser of two evils and you're holding your nose. I've had on an occasion or two the opportunity to be really excited to vote for the person. Sometimes I go to vote because I'm literally voting against someone, and it's that thing of like I really want to stop that person. Sometimes you go to vote because there's principles or ideals or values that you care about. There's all these. I mean, once I went to vote because my name was on the ballot.
And you voted for yourself.
think,
I'm
yeah,
assuming. Yeah. Okay. It
well,
wasn't.
you know,
It
it's a
wasn't one of
private
those.
ballot.
It wasn't one of those previous reasons. It's a private ballot.
To think that you have to bribe the American people to care about
Yes.
an election, to be so crass, to be so
Yes. And
you know,
so
it's
over the
just
top, $1
it
million
is
dollar, lottery
insulting.
win. It's
It
just
is insulting because clearly your person can't inspire people, your principles can't inspire people, you don't have that patriotism to inspire people. All you can do is appeal to the thing that matters most to you and assume it will matter most to the American people,
yeah,
and
that's it.
that is money.
Money. Yeah,
Money.
and trying to say
It's
if you
insulting what
you
Elon has done.
do you know who won the million? You know who one of the people are who won the $1 million last night?
Who? No.
College kid who works for Turning Point USA and had worked for Ron Johnson and for Congressman Vanderhorn. A political college kid who's an insider happened to win the random lottery.
Just happened to win. Mm-hmm.
So he stands on the stage. Now, look, that's the thing about randomness. If it's truly random, every single person in there, the one who's never voted before and the one who is hardwired into the very system that Elon Musk has used to distribute the information about this, which is Turning Point USA, randomly, they all should have the same chance if it's truly random. But does anybody really grant that Elon Musk is going to leave this up to random?
Nope.
Hey, did we ever get word if Donald Trump
Insult-
actually wrote a check for a Tesla? Do we know
No,
that yet? Have we heard?
I mean, I am on record. I am on record saying
Yeah.
he didn't actually buy the Tesla.
Yeah.
No way
I
he
just
wrote
didn't
the
know
check.
if we'd heard. I assumed you would be keeping up on that.
Doug, do we know if Cory Booker is still talking?
I don't know if Cory Booker is still talking, but when we started this
Senator
podcast, Cory Booker was talking.
Yeah, Cory Booker, senator from New Jersey, began last night a filibuster, which one of the things I absolutely love is on Cory Booker's YouTube page, where you can watch this filibuster happening. It doesn't say Booker's filibuster. It says the title on the video. Do you know what it says, Doug? It says
I'm trying to find
Booker's long speech to the Senate.
Well, I've heard that. I heard someone say it's
His
not
long
technically.
speech.
It's not technically a filibuster for some filibuster rule reason. Like
Yeah.
there's something about it where it still has to function under the same rules, but technically doesn't get to be a filibuster. Do you know anything about that? That's what I had.
I have not dug that deep. It just cracks me up that long speech is the is the technical term of what he's doing. So
I'm looking now.
What Cory Booker's trying to do is
They would thank me and America for it.
He is still talking.
Catherine Baker from Neptune, New Jersey. And Catherine, I see you. I see you, Catherine. I hear you.
It's super creepy when the government's saying, "I see you and I hear you."
Yeah.
Gotta be careful.
So he started at 7 p.m. Eastern last night. So he's been going for
15 hours.
15 hours.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He yields to have questions asked, I think, which give him a chance to run to the bathroom or sit down or, grab.
Yeah, and I don't know the
grab a
rules on
granola
that.
bar or
When I
something
heard
like
the
that.
questions being asked, I think he was maybe eating and drinking. I don't even know if he was standing, but he was right there in the room. So I was wondering about when he went to the bathroom as well, because you reach our age, Rob, and you just think about your fellow person our age, and you are concerned about their ability to find a restroom when needed. It's not a trivial matter. It's like little kids and people our age and up that we think a lot about that. Like,
Yeah. Doug, what do you think of this tactic by Cory Booker to bring attention to the Trump administration policies and tactics, as a means of trying to shape public opinion against them.
I'm making this squiddy face for two reasons. One, because it's kind of how I feel about it, but also I hope this is the screen grab that YouTube takes when it puts this video up. Look, anyone doing anything using their particular system, structure, apparatus, I'm all for it.
Yeah.
Just, it's all of the above right now. It's all hands on deck. It's every metaphor for that you can find. So yes, good for you. And what took people so long? It's kind of too bad that Democrats didn't start a rolling filibuster in the Senate with their 50 people and everyone just kept going, something fun, something creative, something that captures some attention, some pushback, some fight back. So yes, all in favor of that. Having said that, it's so Washington centric. It's so like me as a senator, and I don't know.
It's my Mr. Smith goes to Washington moment.
I'm glad they're not reading, the Dr. Seuss books like Ted Cruz did. At least he's saying substantive thing, and that's all great. But it feels a little bit like, and I don't want to be, Mr. Sally
Negative
Sassy,
Nancy.
but a number of times I have run running races for 24 and 26 hours. Standing up and talking for 15 hours, let's not act like you're saving the world here. I mean, the way, you know what I'm saying? Like, I know it's hard. It's hard to be on your feet that long. Yeah, I know. There's people that have been in labor for half that amount of time, I mean, like, so I don't know. There's a little bit of like, thank you for your suffering for this high cost. Like, all right, let's set all that suffering business aside, and like, how about if he just says, look, I'm going to use what I've got. All of you use what you've got. Let's all of it throw this into a giant gumbo of resistance. And but in light of the fact that there's kind of nothing else going on.
It's not like he's
Saturday,
stopping something.
That's right. This Saturday, there's some big movements that are happening. I hope people know about that and can be a part of those. There's some things happening. But this seems very Washington-centric and very... If you listen to it, it's hilarious. The rules of the Senate that have to be in place where every time a question is asked, he has to say... I maintain the floor, but I yield the voice to the person who's going to ask me a question, the dear sir from Rhode Island, who's going to la, la, la. Like, okay. But to your point, if I stop talking, they will vote and a bad thing will happen. That's not it. That's why I don't know that maybe that's why it's not a filibuster. I don't know what the thing is, but he's not filibustering a thing. He's doing a performative piece,
making a long speech.
I'm all for performative speeches. And look, I'm not saying what he's doing isn't hard. It's really hard to talk. It might be harder to talk for 15 hours than to run for 15 hours if someone's in running shape. I mean, that actually is an extremely difficult thing. I know some people who watch this podcast might not think that would be hard. They might think we could do it and have felt that we've talked for 15 hours over the course of one of these podcasts. I think we only did 12 or something, didn't we? When we did a telethon, a good-a-thon? How long was our
good-a-thon? I think that was 12 hours. Yeah,
12 hours. We should really do.
Yeah, I mean that's 8 a.m. to 8 p.m.
We should really go full Jerry Lewis. Yeah,
Jerry Lewis with the bow tie off by the morning and untied.
And smoking like crazy. Remember that? Remember when the American people said, let's all get together and try to solve, I think then it was like ALS or leukemia. What? This is sad that I don't remember.
Muscular dystrophy?
Oh,
muscular dystrophy.
Yeah. Even as a kid, I thought, funny way to fund, research. Really? Is this what we do? But it made people feel like they were, now it's like, you know what we should do? Cut food to food banks so that we can give tax cuts and make sure that Elon Musk, who doesn't seem to know the difference between waste and fraud and food banks, not unlike Donald Trump not knowing, the many things that we have suggested that he didn't know.
And Doug, I'm just going to throw a little parentheses in here.
All right.
as a shameless plug, as we're talking about, Cory Booker doing what he can, giving a speech on the floor of the Senate, and everybody needs to do what they can. Uh, I I did what I know how to do, which is open up the Bible, and so I think folks ought to check out the gospel according to donaldtrump.com. The gospel according to donaldtrump.com. And there you will find little piece of satire, a little piece of performance art. It's a book that's available to you. It's the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, redacted.
Did Tim literally figure out how to turn it into a book with just black print, just black bars?
Yes, that's what it is. It's so funny. It is incredible. Hilarious. That's incredible. It is a redacted Bible. Where everything that aligns with the words, the actions, the attitudes, the values of Donald Trump is removed, and so anything related to faith, anything related to sin, anything, because Donald Trump, he has nothing to apologize for. Anything, any good done by women, any accountability, any love, humility, all stricken from the
Gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John.
The Gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And what's left is a Jesus who does miracles and amasses followers. It's about power and fame. Mm-hmm. And when you think about the Trump administration, you think about Donald Trump, it's about power and fame. So check out the Gospel according to Donald Trump. It's available on Amazon. It's available on Ingram Spark. And
Oh, I don't know if I lost everybody. Hey, got you back. I don't know if that was just you that time or if we lost everybody again. But I don't hear you, Rob.
All right, now it says I'm on air. I'm in the broadcast. I was in the green room previously.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I had two of you.
We have a really fancy green room with only brown and orange M&Ms.
Well, congratulations on the Gospel According to Donald Trump project. It is genius.
It's hilarious. It is just made me laugh. So so folks, go check out the Gospel According to donaldtrump.com and snag yourself a copy if you want. Help me make lots of money or something.
Hey, look at our troopers on YouTube.
Love it.
So just letting us know we're still here. We still got it rolling. Thanks y'all. That means a lot to us, especially when we have our mobile rigs running. I wish there was a way I could show you what my setup looks like. I don't know. So, Rob, the fact that we've got any of this actually working is actually quite remarkable. Did I cut you, Rob? Did I cut you like a knife? Sorry about that. There you are.
In the broadcast now. Yeah. You're like, here, let me show you. And boom, we're gone.
It all went away. Well, I was showing the good people what the just absolute ragtag nature of this on a mobile setup is. Yeah. So the fact that we're pulling any of this off is kind of how I feel about democracy at all, right? Like you've managed to come up with a fun project. Cory Booker came up with a thing he could do. We're all making our deals. Alex was saying she's off to a big meeting on Saturday. Anybody in the chat, if there's some things you're doing, things you're up to, put it in the comments. If not already, if you're doing this while we're live here, we can pop those on the screen.
Yep. Doug, tomorrow, today's April Fool's Day. Tomorrow is Liberation Day.
What is that?
Donald Trump has been talking about, and his administration has been talking about tomorrow being Liberation Day. It's the day that the tariffs go into effect. There will be, a whole new announcement. It feels the tariffs are beginning to feel like infrastructure week, aren't they? Like
You
there's
mean
going to
he's
be
been
tariffs.
announcing these and they haven't gone into effect yet, but
No,
tomorrow they
no,
do?
they he announces tariffs and then they pull back and
Okay,
then
yeah, I did know. Yeah.
it's been like infrastructure week from the first from the first administration. Tomorrow is apparently like, okay, it's a, you know, get off the pot kind of moment for him where he's going to finally enact this stuff. We shall see.
I mean, the
We
fact
shall
that he
see.
believes that Americans paying 25% more for products
Mhm.
and paying that 25% to the federal government to add 25% purchase, 25% of the purchase price, and that doesn't go to the manufacturer, doesn't go to the workers, it goes to the federal government in addition to whatever you pay the manufacturers and the workers. That he
Yeah.
thinks
Why
that's
does the federal government
liberation,
need this much money?
that he believes that's liberation. The American people are paying the money. Whether the American people are the business that brings it in or they choose to pass it on or not. If you're a business that's going to say, I'm just going to absorb the 25% or the 10% or the 15% or whatever the craziness is, I'm just going to absorb that for a while. If your business has enough 15 to
Margin. Yeah.
25% extra going, well,
Yeah.
congratulations for you. You know what most companies don't have? 25% profits they can just pay to the federal government as a
Nope.
tax. Tariffs are taxes paid by Americans to the American federal government. Do you know who doesn't pay any tariffs? China, Mexico, Canada, Greenland. They don't pay American tariffs to our government. It's still unclear to me if Donald Trump knows or believes that. It really is unclear because he continues to say Mexico pays the tariffs, just like Mexico will pay to
Pay for
build
the
the
wall.
wall.
Yeah. Yeah. So Liberation Day tomorrow. We'll see what happens.
Should we go
Doug.
live at the end of the day and see how liberated we are?
Oh yeah. So JD Vance went to Greenland.
Yeah.
Was supposed to spend several days. Um, Only ended up spending a few hours and flying home. It's just the assault on Greenland is so utterly bizarre. It is just crazy.
It's just
Um,
crazy.
yeah.
I mean, the other day I asked ChatGPT, can you please explain to me why Donald Trump wants to annex Greenland? And it's kind of basically they have some resources there that America might need for strategic purposes. That's what strategic partnerships are about. You don't buy the place or let alone take over the place because you need what they have. They're a sovereign nation, man. Look, of course, this is not going to happen. Greenland might decide to enter into some strategic partnership with the United States because of some pressure put on them by Trump for some blah, 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 blah. But like everything else with Canada, it's stuff they were already going to do anyway. It is so. Now, I heard that when J.D. Vance went, like there's photos where they're waving at a crowd and then they shoot the other side and there's no one there. They're just green screening it. They're just faking it. And I saw things like they couldn't find anyone to meet with them. They couldn't find any people anywhere to stay. That seems far fetched to me that that's true, but maybe it is. Maybe they're literally so bad that they couldn't find.
Yeah. Yeah. And Doug, the other big thing that's been swirling around is all the talk about a third term.
Yeah. Well, we brought that up a couple weeks ago, didn't we? We said, look, a couple ways he can get a third term. Functionally, he runs as vice president, which I don't know that he can. I don't know how that works.
That's long debated.
He runs his children, Don Jr. or Laura, his daughter-in-law, as the candidate. That J.D. Vance runs and picks Marco Rubio, and then those two, because they've shown themselves to be the most easy marks to give in to Trump. just basically let Trump run it all, or he becomes the Speaker of the House and then they resign and then he slides in.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Like that's the best move. That's the that's the Manchurian candidate move right there, right? Yeah. Marco Rubio and J.D. Vance become vice president and president. Donald Trump runs for Speaker of the House, wins easily. They resign. He becomes the president.
Yeah, because Speaker of the House is second in line.
Look, if the American people the American people want it,
Doug, there's a scenario where there's a scenario that people aren't talking about. He just does it. He just does it.
What do you mean? Does what?
He just runs. He gets the Republican nomination and he runs, and nobody stops him.
Well,
and all the people, all the Democrats will be saying, like, this is unconstitutional. Sure. This is unconstitutional. And he just does it anyway.
Yeah. Courts would prevent him from being on the ballot. It wouldn't even, the degree to which the number of requisite 270 electoral college votes that would be necessary for him to be on the ballot in that number of states, there are going to be state laws that would prevent it, that Republicans can't.
We shall see.
Can't work around.
See.
I don't think the path is him being on the ballot as the president.
I do.
That's the most.
As I sit here today,
okay,
I believe that Donald Trump will be on the ballot in 2028. I don't know. I don't know how. I just think it's going to happen.
Yeah, even in a place like Louisiana, they are not going to violate constitutional law. The state of Louisiana is not. I know people believe the fealty is so high, and so we need Trump and everything, but that is. I just think that's not where the worry point comes. Look, but does Trump think he could? Think he should? Will he try it? 100%. There, yeah, for sure. He could try. This is a guy who thought, I won't leave office. What I will do is get a bunch of people to stop the certification on January 6th by overwhelming the House of Representatives and the Senate chambers. Therefore, they won't certify the election because I'll get enough senators to say we won't vote to certify the election, and therefore I will then stay in office. That's why January 6th happened. It wasn't a random day, it was that day. So yeah, he could try something like that. But the idea that he's going to use the normal democratic election process to be on the ballot is the most that's too complex for someone to
It might be
our Supreme Courts. I know people say
it might be the most simple way for him to do it. To just say, "No, I'm doing it."
Yeah. Well. Look, Donald Trump
and getting secretaries of state.
But let's be clear.
Getting secretaries of state, all Republican secretaries of state, all over the country to defy court orders.
Yeah, that's what I mean. See, that's not going to happen. But here's the thing.
Yes, it is. Yes, it could. It absolutely could. Why wouldn't it?
Because secretaries of state aren't ultimately in charge. The legal system, the constitutional legal system, is in charge. Here's the thing, and this is what I think we have to take into true account here. Donald Trump didn't break any laws when he got reelected. Donald Trump didn't break any laws when he ran for re-election.
That we know of.
The second time. So the idea that we think the only way and the way Donald Trump has won the two elections that he's won is by breaking the law. That's not it. The American people chose him in the Electoral College in 2016, and the Electoral College and the majority of people who chose to vote on or before Election Day. That's what happened. He didn't get there by secretaries of state violating their laws. He didn't get there by judges and Supreme Courts giving up constitutionality. That didn't happen. The degree to which judges currently are standing up to the sheer violations in the first 60 days of this administration, we should stop saying to ourselves, there's no protections. There's no law. There are people. In fact, we have no proof of any Republican secretaries of state or Supreme Courts anywhere in the country defying the law. What we have are people standing up for it all over in 2020 and even saying they would in 2024. So this notion that I know Alex suggested this, that the guardrails are gone, this is how he wins, this is what, that's not how he's won. I mean, I wish that's how he had won, but it wasn't. And the Rathenbergers and the judges in Wisconsin and Pennsylvania and all these other places said, no, your case is being thrown out. Even in friggin', when the one thing happened in Colorado, even the Supreme Court's like, okay, look, you can't do that. The Supreme Court of the United States of America would take over. This doesn't come down to some Secretary of State or one rando crazy Republican judge. There are actually mechanisms to prevent him from being on the ballot. Now, is there some other way that people could conjure it up? For sure. But I just think we should be a little less, we have no law, that we live in lawless land now. The problem is we've infused so much power in the presidency that he can just go off and do this stuff that is not only illegal until it's overturned, which every president has to deal with, or it's just downright stupid, just downright idiotic. So that's where I come at this from. Is look, it's all right. Here's Roger saying no. What WTF? Hey, I wonder if you're by the Gulf of Mexico there. He was aided by Russia in 2016, and Musk in 2020 was not a majority. More voted against. Yeah. More people voted against Donald Trump if you include those who didn't vote for him. But the majority of the voters in 2024 voted for Donald Trump. Alex, I wish it had been that he was disqualified from the presidency, but even if he had been convicted, as he was convicted in the other cases that he was convicted of, people still voted for him, and he hangs his mugshot outside the White House. I mean, I wish the guy being convicted would have done it. MAGA gerrymandering, gerrymandering I think only has to do with Congress because it has to do with congressional districts, so it doesn't impact senators and it doesn't impact the presidency. Yavitz thinks he's a road runner. He'll always. Look, let's not give up the democracy ahead of time.
Yeah, totally.
What do they call that? Pre-quitting or something, or obeying in advance or something? Like, no. Yeah. Let's continue to reinforce the demand that, of course, Trump is not going to have the power to just become unconstitutional, and there's no one to stop him. I mean, look, be glad to admit I was wrong the third time on something on this podcast. I won't admit all the other times I was wrong. Could be wrong the third time. But let's wait for that to happen, not grant somehow this guy's a magic. He's an idiot and a buffoon, in my view. Like, idiot in the truest sense of the word. Like, just is so dumb. But people love the guy who vote for him. Mm-hmm. The biggest fear I have is that people are going to keep voting for him and for people like him. Yeah. And Democrats have to start winning over those voters.
Yep.
Alex is making good points. She says, I'm trying to say that Trump has been underestimated with the powers to defy the guardrails. Yeah, I get it, Alex, but I think we should be very specific about which guardrails. Like, I thought leading an insurrection would make the American people say this guy is unelectable. He managed to change people's minds on that. It made him more electable. That's not a guardrail. That's a public opinion thing. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Guess I'm just a winsome old man still remembering when we had a democracy.
Just keep on believing.
Because we're going to have an election, and it could happen that he's not in charge of the House of Representatives. The Republicans are not going to be in charge of the House of Representatives after November 2026.
Yeah. There is an election happening today that in Wisconsin and in Florida that could send some really important messages. We shall see.
Yeah, a little comment on that. I was listening to another broadcast about this kind of stuff, and they were saying, like, hey, let's all get out there and vote because we need to grab the momentum. And this is like borrowing a sports kind of metaphor, I think is most talked about in sports, where we talk about momentum as if it's a thing that someone has and someone else doesn't have. Winning an election now doesn't give you momentum to anything. It's not like that's a metaphor.
Yeah.
Momentum. Yeah. You might say, well, I mean by momentum, we're encouraging people that the American people are turning against this kind of thing or not. But boy, the ability we have as Democrat-leaning voters to overestimate the meaning of elections is I think a real issue. Because there were a lot of voters, especially Hispanic voters, and it's some new data that's come out that voted for Trump, but also voted for Democratic congressional members.
Yep.
They were splitting tickets. So something's going on here that's not just red-blue. It's a different. There's something else going on, and ultimately what it's going to come down to. I think we've had 3 free and fair elections. The last 3 at the presidential level. I'm guessing that if Roger, I'll pop his comment back up here, that if Roger was back on here, he might say no, it wasn't a free and fair election. I believe we had free elections and fair elections in 2016, 2020, and 2024, and I think Donald Trump won what was necessary to become the president in 2 out of the 3 of those. Where do you come down on that, Rob? I've never asked you that. Do you use that categorization? Do you not? Do you think it was free and fair? How do you think about it?
I've got a red blinking light on my my Wi-Fi thing. So if I go away,
that's awesome. How do you think of it?
There is not any evidence, objectively, that the 2024 election was influenced in any way. Therefore, I have to believe that the majority of people voting in that election chose Donald Trump. There's a part of me that does not want to believe that about the American people. I would rather believe that Elon Musk did something with Starlink to blah, blah, blah. I would rather believe that than believe that the majority of voting people in America support Donald Trump.
Me too. I mean, we can get into we can put on our philosophical hats and speak of, Girardian scapegoat theory, mimemic theory of understanding the world, that we need to apply a villain and have a scapegoat that carries this.
Right.
The ultimate end of all that is we realize it was all of us. That's a democratic notion. That's definitely a religious notion of Christianity. That's what one is meant to see, is that we are all the doers of good and the doers of harm. Yeah, look, I'm with you too. And I have a bunch of friends who think they're Republican Trump voters that think 2020 was the one outlier. And the only way to
Right.
explain it is, how could that have
Yeah.
happened? How could he have,
Right. Yeah. We look at the results and say, where did those 12 million people go? Why didn't they vote? And they look at those same things and say, those 12 million people they didn't vote in 2024 because they were. But that begs the question, if you faked it in 2020, why wouldn't you fake it in 2024?
If you faked it when you weren't the president, why wouldn't you fake it even better when you were the president?
Yeah.
Of course, it begs
Yeah,
the question.
there's
No proof of it, and we actually know
Right.
the people, and we know. I mean, this is the thing about the behavior of 150, 160 million people ever.
One of the, I read, I finished up a book called "They Thought They Were Free," which I've talked about a couple
You
of times.
finished reading it.
Yes.
As a prolific author, some of us
as opposed to redacting it, just taking a Sharpie to it. Yeah. ChatGPT
writing your own. We should be clear. You are an author of your own. Right.
Kept referring to me as the author of the Gospel According to Donald Trump. And I finally had to correct ChatGPT and said, listen, it's more like I'm the creator of the Gospel According to Donald Trump. Because I didn't really write much. I mean, there's a few pages of appendices, but I didn't really write much. I mostly just crossed stuff out. Anyways, so this book, They Thought They Were Free. It's in the 1950s, a reporter from the United States goes to Germany and becomes friends with and tells the story of 10 men who were members of the Nazi Party from the 30s through World War II. Only one of the 10 men regrets being a Nazi, into the 1950s, regrets that he had become a Nazi. The really fascinating thing is that two of the men believe Germany won the war. And you look around and you say, wait, Germany did not win the war.
Yes, right. Why aren't you in charge of Poland?
Yeah. Two of them believe that Germany won the war. And you say, how can they believe that? And you just look around today. Mm-hmm. We have people who believe things that are objectively untrue. Mm-hmm. And just flat out not the case. Mm-hmm. And because the loyalty, the brainwashing, the whatever you want to call it goes so deep. And I think we've got some of that thing happening here in our own country.
Yeah. And look, I'm even that way about the 2016 election, where Russia did choose to interfere in the United States election. They did.
Through marketing it was through it wasn't in like the vote tallying. It was in terms of influence, information, propaganda, it wasn't changing the vote numbers.
That's right.
It was trying to change the way people would think and their
therefore
patterns
vote.
of behavior.
Yeah. They were trying to influence the way people would vote, not change the votes that people cast.
Yes. And that's a qualitatively different thing.
Oh, yeah, because nations do this all the time. That's why nations have agreements. You stop doing it. Yeah. And we'll stop doing it. Okay, so we should just bake that in. Nations are influencing communication messaging in the United States. TikTok is clearly doing it. The people who run YouTube channels and stuff are paid by people in other nations. This has all been clearly vetted out, proven out. I mean, the Justice Department has arrested people for it. It's very clear. The problem in 2016 was the Trump campaign partnered with Russia in doing it through Paul Manafort. That's what was in the Mueller report.
Yep.
That's what the Mueller report proved. Didn't have to prove that Russia interfered in the election alone. That the Trump campaign had been part and parcel of that influence campaign. Mm-hmm. That's what makes it criminal. That's what makes it a law. Should have been removed from office over that. Wasn't. Because if we continue to believe that the law is what's going to protect our democracy more than voter turnout, we have to turn out. And the American people did not turn out in 2024 to stop Donald Trump from becoming the president. He got 62 million votes in 2016, 70 million votes in 2020, and 77 million votes in 2024. That's 15 million people who didn't vote for him in 2016 who did in 2024. And probably more than that, because some of those people who voted for him in 2016 moved away, so they had to refill those. That's the problem. And if we think that happened because Starlink or because, I mean, to me, look, Starlink, you might as well be saying, well, what's that voting tech machine that the Kraken woman was all into?
Dominion.
Yeah, Dominion voting machines is like saying Starlink. You know, and if you say Elon Musk interfered by incentivizing people, okay, well that's a different thing. Again, motivating people to act or not to act. And by the way, voter suppression is one of these things too. We suppress votes all over this country all the time. Felons who can't vote, people who have districts that have moved. We do all kinds of stuff to make it hard for people to vote. Voter ID laws, it's all so harmful and so ridiculous. There's all of that. Who can vote, who can't vote, why do people vote, who gets them to vote. That's one thing. That's all the cacophony of flow and mess. That's included in a free and fair election. If you don't call it a free and fair election because that's going on, I get that. I know people who make that argument. Then we don't have them now. We never have had them. And I think that's a legitimate view for someone to take. That in light of the fact that we have voter laws and voter suppression activities that are being put into place and limiting people and purging voter rolls and too much influence of big money and all the rest of it, we don't have free and fair elections. If you make that argument, I get you. We don't have free and fair elections. If you start with, in light of all of that, no one's interfering with the votes that are being cast.
Yeah, no one's changing the tallies.
So I get it. If you're in the camp that says we don't have free and fair elections, that's not one. Okay, fair enough. Then what are we doing? You know, if you think we do have free and fair elections under that guise, and that might cause some people to be like, well, no, as a matter of fact, I don't think we do have free and fair elections when I think about it that way. Fair enough. You know, I'm not trying to convince you that you should think we have free and fair elections. I'm just trying to say if you think we do, in the basis, nothing happened in 2016, 2020, or 2024 that should make any of us think that illegality was the answer for why a person won those elections. It's worse than that.
It's worse than that. Yeah. Yep.
And will we have a democracy at the end of this? I hope so.
Yeah.
But here's what I do know.
We're not to the season finale yet.
Here, yeah. Did this American democracy get renewed for another season? Here's what I do know. Whoever the president is that comes in, they can't do what Joe Biden did, which was try to get us back to normal. Yeah. Donald Trump broke America and the presidency in 2017 through 2021. Joe Biden tried to act like he could just put it back together. Yeah. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. And there's no putting the presidency back together again like it used to be in whatever vision of the good old days. So whoever the Democratic president has to start functioning differently in light of what the American people say they want from a president. Yeah. Now, Joe Biden fans will say he didn't get a chance for re-election because he was run out of office by the blah, 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 blah. You know, and look, racism and gender play a huge role. Had Kamala Harris been a different gender, would the American people have responded the same way? A lot of people say no. I suspect it greatly. I was a big fan. Like, I was all in. I thought this is great. I think it's better that she's a woman running for office. It didn't seem to be enough if that wasn't the reason. So, anything more?
No, I'm good.
Nothing left to say here. All right. Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Yabbits. It was good to see some new voices in there. Roger, nice to have you around. Nice to have.
Jim was here.
Boy, there's a lot of these. Did we get all of these? Kay, thank you. Paul, Jim. Yeah.
Thanks, everybody. The gospel according to DonaldTrump.com.
And if you're not yet on the Vote Common Good email list, get on it, because I think you'll be hearing a little bit about that when it comes out. All right, bye, everybody. Hang in there. Bye, Mike Stavlin.